If you're 25 right now, I want you to pause for a moment. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because something is happening in your life that you don't even realize yet. At 25, you feel like you're late. And early, at the same time. Late because you think you should already have things figured out. Early because everyone keeps telling you, you're still young. That confusion, that quiet pressure in your chest, it's real. You wake up some days feeling motivated, other days feeling lost. You scroll through your phone and see people your age winning, building, traveling, succeeding. And you ask yourself a dangerous question. What am I doing with my life? No one really prepares you for this age. School ends, structure disappears. Suddenly, every decision feels heavy. Career, money, love, purpose. One wrong move feels like it could ruin everything. So you delay, you overthink, you wait. And that's why I need to talk to you. Because 25 is not just another year. It's a doorway. What you do now quietly shapes the next 10, 20, even 40 years of your life. Most people don't ruin their lives in one big mistake. They lose it slowly, by staying in things that feel okay, by ignoring the voice inside that says, this isn't it, by choosing comfort over growth, by telling themselves they'll get serious later. Later is expensive. I've seen people blink, and suddenly they're 35, then 45. Still asking the same questions, still waiting for confidence, still hoping something will change on its own. Listen to me carefully. If you're 25, you still have something incredibly powerful. Time, energy, and the ability to change direction without regret owning you yet. But that window doesn't stay open forever. There are truths I wish someone had sat me down and told me at 25. Not to scare me, but to wake me up. If you hear them now, really hear them, your life can go in a very different direction. When you're 25, you think you have time to experiment. And you do. But what no one tells you is that your habits are already becoming your future. The small choices you repeat every day are quietly voting on the life you'll wake up to later. Not the big decisions, the boring ones. The way you start your mornings, the way you end your nights, the things you avoid because they feel uncomfortable. At 25, I thought discipline was something you built later. After success, after clarity, after motivation showed up. That's backwards. Discipline is what creates clarity, not the other way around. I wasted years waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident enough to try, waiting to feel motivated enough to commit. Motivation never stayed. It came in waves and disappeared when things got hard. What stayed were my habits. Scrolling instead of learning, complaining instead of building, planning instead of doing. They felt harmless, even deserved. I told myself I was young, that I could afford to waste time. Time remembers everything. Every hour you trade for comfort today gets charged with interest tomorrow. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't suddenly become disciplined at 30, or focused at 35. You become more of what you already are. If you avoid hard things now, you'll avoid harder things later. If you build courage now, you'll have options later. I had a friend at 25 who wasn't smarter than me, wasn't richer, wasn't luckier, but he did one thing differently. He showed up consistently when no one was watching. He worked on skills when others were partying. He learned when others were consuming. He took responsibility when others blamed circumstances. 10 years later, people called him lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. At 25, effort feels invisible. At 35, it becomes obvious. Your future self is being built quietly in the background while you decide whether to do the uncomfortable thing or the easy thing. And I need you to hear this clearly. You don't need to know your entire life plan right now. You just need to stop lying to yourself about what you're avoiding. That project you keep delaying, that habit you know is hurting you, that skill you keep saying you'll learn someday. Someday is not a strategy. At 25, your biggest enemy isn't failure, it's drift. And if you don't grab the steering wheel now, life will choose a direction for you. At 25, one of the hardest things to accept is this. No one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your friends, not a perfect job, not the right relationship, and definitely not motivation. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to free you, because the moment you stop waiting for permission, your life starts moving. I spent years thinking someone would notice my potential, that an opportunity would appear at the perfect time, that clarity would arrive before action. It never did. What arrived instead were responsibilities, bills, expectations, and a quiet resentment that life wasn't turning out the way I imagined. That resentment was my fault. At 25, it's easy to blame the system, the economy, your background, your luck. And yes, some people start ahead. That's real. But blaming doesn't change your trajectory. Ownership does. The most powerful shift you can make at this age is taking full responsibility for where you are and where you're going, not in a self-hating way, in an honest way. The moment you say, "This is on me," you gain control. Before that, you're just reacting. I remember the day it clicked for me. I looked at my life and realized no one had forced me into it. I had chosen it. Through action and inaction. That hurt. But it also gave me something I didn't have before. Power. From that moment, excuses stopped comforting me. They started embarrassing me. Because excuses don't protect you from regret. They create it. At 25, you're building the reputation you'll live with, not just with others, with yourself. Are you someone who keeps promises, someone who follows through, someone who faces discomfort instead of running from it? Your self-trust is being formed right now. Every time you say you'll do something and don't, it weakens. Every time you show up when it's hard, it grows. Confidence isn't loud, it's quiet. It comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. And here's the part no one likes to hear. You can't heal in the same environment that keeps you distracted, numb, and comfortable. If your days are filled with noise, comparison, and escape, you'll never hear what your life is asking from you. At 25, solitude isn't loneliness, it's training. It's where you figure out who you are without the opinions, the expectations, the pressure to perform. If you don't choose that space intentionally, life will force it on you later. And it won't be gentle. This is the age where you either step up quietly or explain loudly later why you didn't. At 25, love feels confusing. You want connection, but you're also afraid of losing yourself. You want something real, but you don't want to make the wrong choice and pay for it later. So you keep things casual. You keep your guard up. You pretend you don't care as much as you actually do. I did that, and I need you to understand what it cost me. At this age, you don't realize how deeply relationships shape your future. Who you give your time to, who you listen to, who you let influence your decisions. These things matter more than your job title ever will. The people around you become your environment, and your environment shapes you. I stayed in relationships that drained me because they felt familiar. I avoided difficult conversations because I didn't want conflict. I chose chemistry over character more times than I want to admit. It felt exciting in the moment. It felt expensive later. At 25, red flags don't look red. They look like personality quirks. You tell yourself love means patience, that people will change, that you can handle it. Sometimes, love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to walk away. The wrong relationship doesn't just waste your time. It rewires how you see yourself. It teaches you to accept less than you deserve. It makes chaos feel normal and peace feel boring. That damage doesn't disappear when the relationship ends. It follows you. I've seen people at 40 still recovering from choices they made at 25. Not because they loved deeply, but because they ignored their intuition. That quiet discomfort you feel around certain people. That's not anxiety. That's information. At this age, friendships also change. Some people grow. Some stay the same. Some secretly resent you when you try to improve your life. And some will disappear the moment you stop being convenient. That hurts, but it's necessary. You don't owe everyone access to your future. I held on to friendships out of loyalty when the truth was we were just scared to grow apart. We bonded over complaining, over distraction, over avoiding responsibility. And slowly, without realizing it, we were pulling each other down. Growth is lonely at first, but stagnation is lonelier in the long run. At 25, you need people who challenge you, not just comfort you. People who tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. People who respect your boundaries and your dreams. And you need to become that kind of person too. Love isn't about being chosen. It's about choosing wisely. Don't rush into something just to fill silence. Don't stay just because you're afraid to start over. And don't ignore the voice inside you that knows when something isn't right. Your future self will either thank you for the boundaries you set now, or suffer because you were afraid to be alone. Choose carefully. At 25, money starts to feel serious, not because you have a lot of it, but because you don't. You start realizing freedom isn't just about passion. It's about stability, about options, about not feeling trapped by every bill, every emergency, every bad decision. And this is where many people quietly fall behind. Not because they're lazy, but because no one taught them how money really works. At 25, you think more money will fix your stress. But money doesn't fix behavior, it exposes it. I watched people get raises and still live paycheck to paycheck. I watched others earn less but sleep better at night. The difference wasn't income, it was control. At this age, spending feels harmless. I deserve this. I'll make more later. It's just one purchase. But those small leaks add up. And one day you realize your money is going everywhere except toward your future. Debt is especially dangerous when you're young. It doesn't feel heavy at first. It feels manageable, normal. Everyone has it. Until years pass and you're still paying for choices you barely remember making. Debt doesn't just cost money. It costs courage. It keeps you in jobs you hate. It keeps you silent when you should speak up. It keeps you afraid to take risks because you can't afford uncertainty. I wish I had learned earlier that money is less about luxury and more about leverage. Saving isn't boring, it's powerful. Investing in skills isn't risky, it's survival. Living below your means isn't punishment, it's freedom in disguise. At 25, every dollar you control gives future you a little more oxygen, a little more space to breathe, to choose, to walk away when something isn't right. And here's the part most people ignore. Money reflects self-respect. If you don't respect your future, you'll steal from it. Slowly, justifying it along the way. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be rich. You just need to be intentional. Track what you spend. Learn how money works. Stop pretending you'll figure it out later. Later comes faster than you think. I've seen too many smart, talented people stuck, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked financial awareness early on. At 25, you're planting seeds. What grows later depends on what you're willing to sacrifice now. Say next when you're ready. If you're 25, this is what I need you to hear most. Your life is not behind, but it is being decided. Not in one dramatic moment, not in a single choice that feels huge. It's being decided quietly, in ordinary days, in what you tolerate, in what you repeat, in what you avoid facing. At this age, you still have something priceless. Time that forgives mistakes. You can change paths without your past chasing you too hard. You can start again without everyone calling it a crisis. You can fail and recover faster than you ever will again. But that grace has an expiration date. One day, responsibility gets heavier. Energy drops. Options narrow. Not because life is cruel, but because that's how time works. I don't want you to panic. I want you to wake up. You don't need to have everything figured out. Anyone telling you they did at 25 is lying or guessing. What you do need is honesty with yourself. Ask yourself this. If nothing changes in the next 5 years, would you be proud of where you end up? If the answer scares you, that's good. Fear can be a signal, not to run, but to move. You don't need a perfect plan. You need momentum. One habit that moves you forward. One uncomfortable conversation. One decision that future you will thank you for. Stop waiting to feel confident. Confidence comes after action, not before it. Stop waiting for permission. No one hands out permission to live a meaningful life. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is almost never comfortable. At 25, discomfort is growth knocking. Don't ignore it. The people who win later aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who took themselves seriously early, who respected their time, who listened when life whispered instead of waiting until it screamed. One day you will look back at this age, and you will either say, "That's when I started showing up for myself," or you'll say, That's when I kept waiting. I can't choose for you, but I can tell you this. The cost of action is temporary. The cost of regret is permanent. So if this message hit something inside you, don't scroll past it like it was just another video. Sit with it. Share it with someone who needs it. Save it. Come back to it when you feel lost. And then do one thing today that moves your life forward. Just one. Because the version of you 5, 10, 20 years from now is quietly watching what you do next. Don't disappoint them.